What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Clapback Culture. I'm your co-host, Jules Jessie, alongside my co-host, Mike Davis of the South Seattle Emerald. What's up, Mike?
Hey, how you doing, Julia?
I'm good. Welcome back. Welcome back. We had last week off, but we're just so grateful to see you guys back. And we are fresh and good to go, you guys.
Let's do it.
All right, so we might as well just jump right into this. First thing is we should definitely pay our respects to the passing of Colin Powell, you guys. Definitely a tragedy. He did pass away this week from COVID complications due to COVID-19. He did have underlying health conditions. He had Parkinson's and also cancer. And so with all that being said, the very, very, very trailblazing military commander did pass. So definitely sad. He had a lot of beautiful feedback from people who were very saddened by his loss. But Mike, Donald Trump definitely did not hold back. And he had a few ugly things to say. I guess he's just the gift that keeps on giving. Let's go ahead and play it, and we'll come back and talk about it.
While we're on the topic of Donald Trump, let's just remind people who Republicans are lining up behind, Republican office holders. He just released a statement about the death of General Colin Powell, who died. We should say he was fighting cancer and Parkinson's, but his death was something of a surprise. He and his wife, Alma, although they were both vaccinated, tested positive for COVID, and Alma's okay. But Colin Powell regrettably died because he had these problems with underlying conditions and a compromised immune system. That said, here is what Donald Trump had to say about this decorated, trailblazing Vietnam War veteran and general. Quote, "Wonderful to see Colin Powell, who made big mistakes on Iraq and famously so-called weapons of mass destruction, be treated in death so beautifully by the fake news media. Hope that happens to me someday. He was a classic rhino, Republican in name only, if even that, always being the first to attack other Republicans. He made plenty of mistakes. But anyway, may he rest in peace." And that was immediately followed by a link to donate money to Donald Trump. It's hard.
Wow.
Listen, like, I don't care who you are and you pass away, like, show some respect for the dead. Like that. Colin Powell isn't even in the ground yet, and he's just going ham. I mean, do we expect better from the desk of Donald Trump?
Man, no. I mean, the death of Donald Trump is probably going to bring celebration in the streets. I think a lot of people probably hope that he didn't make it through his bout with COVID that he had. But I mean, I don't expect anything more from Donald Trump at this point. He got booted from all of the popular social media platforms. So he's going to do whatever he can to try to make it into our space. And he wants that airtime on CNN. He wants to be in the conversation. So this is what he has to do to get there. It's unfortunate that that it had to happen like this. Yeah, man, I hate that we have to talk about Donald Trump right now for what he just said about Colin Powell. So I'll just say rest in peace.
Yeah, I think Donald Trump just takes any chance he can have to have any, any form of press.
Yeah.
And so to make this kind of disparaging comment in an attempt to tarnish, all of the good that Colin Powell did do. He was a lot of first in the Black community. And so, historically, we can look at Colin Powell's record and think, okay, whose side was he on? He definitely was a true conservative and Republican. But I think later on in life, we talked about a lot of blemishes that he felt were on his record, which included the war in Iraq. And so I think he, kind of understood that under the leadership of George W. Bush, that he did make some mistakes. But I definitely think Donald Trump is extremely out of place. He's rude, he's crass. And to make those kind of disparaging comments, as people are mourning that loss, I think it's extremely disrespectful and classless.
I agree with that. And I would also add that, this is one of the pitfalls of Donald Trump, like he attacked them and he used that rhino term. I mean, Donald Trump alienates a lot of Republicans who probably could actually do good work. But it's not enough to be a Republican. You have to be one of his cronies. So if you're not willing to blindly follow Trump, he's going to cast you aside. And that's kind of how he puts all of these yes men in place who aren't even really suitable to hold the jobs that they're supposed to hold. And that's why his administration kind of crumbled. So, I mean, this is right on par with what he's always done. And attacking folks like Colin Powell, who are very capable, very talented, decorated, as you said. I mean, that's one of Donald Trump's major flaws. So, yeah, I mean, shout out to Colin Powell. I mean, before Obama, I believe he and Condoleezza Rice were like the highest ranking officials in African-American history. So for him to even make it to that staple says a lot. And as you said, in his later years, he kind of spoke about some of the decisions that he made. So I'm just glad that he had that time for reflection before he passed.
Before we move on, I do want to highlight something you said. This is very on brand for Donald Trump. And in fact, I think I saw in the news that Donald Trump is attempting to threaten Republicans for the upcoming election, to say that he's going to basically campaign for Republicans to not go out and vote, period. And so he's making this attempt to sabotage the next presidential election. So again, he is the nasty gift that keeps on giving. And I think conservatives should have never allowed him access in. But I'm telling you, you follow the money trail and you can find all the secrets. Some new updates in the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie case. There are some apparent human remains that were found after also finding Brian Laundrie's possessions located in the Carlton Reserve located in Florida. The area was previously underwater. Authorities cannot confirm whether the remains are connected to Laundrie. And Laundrie is a person of interest in the murder of Gabby Petito. I want to make note that Gabby Petito, may she rest in peace, she was 22 years old and Brian is 23. I had a lot to say as it related to the news coverage, but I definitely made it. I remained vocal in support that we absolutely needed to support this young girl having gone missing and subsequently murdered due to strangulation, as per the medical examiner's report. I think it's devastating that here we are 37 days after the last time Laundrie's parents saw him. I mean, he's a kid, 23 years old. The whole world is basically looking for you. Your entire life with this girl has been streamed on social media, on YouTube. And, maybe you killed her. Maybe you were in the heat of the moment. I don't know what happened, but I mean, it's just a sad story for both sets of parents that they probably lost both of their kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's always sad when we have to talk about loss, especially when we're talking about folks this young. When we look at, the case with Gabby, we may never even know now what exactly happened to her. And I see somebody in the chat saying that they've ID'd it and it's him. I can't personally confirm that because I didn't read that just yet. But I mean, you know, I do want to see how he died. I mean, the reports are saying that the remains that they found were partial. And I don't know what that means. I don't even want to speculate because that sounds pretty horrible, but it would be good to know if this is him, how he died. Like, was he also killed or did he take his own life? Because that might give us some sort of glimpse into what happened with Gabby.
A plot twist could definitely be,
for sure.
It could definitely arise in this. I would not be surprised if there was a huge plot twist. I also thought about that when they said remains. I'm like, okay, so it's not a body. So did he commit suicide? Did animals?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of the animal portion.
Also underwater, and so we know that water, you know, really takes.
Right.
So thank you, Bria, for the report. If you can drop the link, whether or not, or to show that they confirm the ID. So
right. It was strange though that he like disappeared for like 5 weeks with no trace. Like that's extremely hard to do, especially for like a 23-year-old kid that hasn't like been a criminal that we know of, you know. To go off the grid like that is hard. That means no credit cards, no paper trail, no nothing for that long. It kind of seemed like he might have died. So, I mean, yeah, we'll just stay on top of this and we'll see what unfolds next.
Well, I mean, his parents definitely gave him a head start to hit the road. I think they probably didn't understand what his mental state was going to be. But I mean, when you have the whole world out looking for you and people are gunning for you like that, I mean, your mental health is definitely in jeopardy. So I also see in the comments, Dora put very weird, but my mama had a dream that he came to her and showed how he died, won't give details.
Whoa.
You know, listen. All right, y'all. Well, moving on a little bit, some new news. This could be great or it could be a terrible idea, but Facebook is talking about changing its name. There is a report allegedly that Facebook is planning to change its corporate name. That came from a report in The Verge that the rebranding would include the creation of a new parent company. Facebook and its various social media apps like Instagram and WhatsApp would become subsidiaries. A Facebook spokesperson declined to comment on rumor or speculation, but The Verge's report suggests that this announcement could come out on October the 28th during a Facebook Connect conference, if not sooner. Mike, what are your thoughts on Facebook changing its name?
Yo, I'm terrified. And not of like Facebook changing their name. They can do their rebrand. They're trying to do like an umbrella company. That's not going to work. You're a monopoly. Don't try to split your companies up. We know what you are and they're coming for you. What scares me is this whole idea of like what did they call it? The metaverse, where like they're trying to create a world that like crosses augmented reality with virtual reality so that people could like have this immersive social media experience. They're describing it in reports as like you can go to a conference room and have a meeting where you can see a bunch of other people represented by avatars and then stand up and go walk to Starbucks. And yo, that is scary, man. People spend enough time on social media as it is when we're just sitting on phones and scrolling. Now you want to take people and put them in this virtual world. It's too much technology for me. I am not on board. I sure hope my children are not on board. And I hope y'all be safe out here, man. There is a real world out here, man. Do not get lost in the metaverse.
Wow. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, okay. Let me touch on what you said. I honestly am with you 100%. I really am not looking forward to living in this virtual world that is going to come. Harry Jefferson said, Facebook, go ahead and have a seat. You'll always be Facebook. So with that being said, thank you, Harry, is that Facebook is always going to be Facebook no matter what it decides to call itself. But if we think about it, historically, some of the bigger brands like Apple used to be Apple Computer, and they dropped the second name, they dropped Computer. Dunkin' Donuts dropped Donuts and just became Dunkin'. And I think Google, and then Google changed its name to Alphabet, which none of us probably knew. I didn't even know that. I Googled it to figure out that Google changed its name, right? But I think it doesn't matter. I mean, basically, it proves my point in that Google made its parent company called Alphabet, and then had all of its subsidiaries come behind it, which is good for business, but it doesn't necessarily become like a platform for rebranding. And so when we think about Facebook, should the actual Facebook platform change its name? I think that would not be a good thing. Why change something that already works? Not necessary.
Yeah. I mean, my first thoughts was that they were trying to like separate themselves from this whistleblower and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But then I kind of saw what Google had did. Like you said, I had no idea about Alphabet. It sounds to me like they don't want it to look like Facebook owns Instagram and WhatsApp. They want this new umbrella company to say that they own Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and whatever this new thing is. It sounds to me like a play to try to make it look like their company is broken up.
Yes.
I don't know that that's going to work. Congress seems to have it out for Facebook. I think that that's also a weird situation to me because, I mean, when you look at how Facebook has been used to manipulate elections, should we really trust Congress to be the ones to come in and decide how Facebook is regulated? Because they're the ones, as politicians, who stand to benefit the most from all of these shenanigans that Facebook has been a part of. It would be nice if we could have like a nonpartisan committee that's not tied to anything and kind of be able to oversee that. So this is all really interesting stuff. Some of it, like I said, is just downright scary, but this is another story that we are definitely going to have to stay on top of and watch because Facebook is extremely powerful. They've swayed elections. They're leading to higher numbers in suicides in our children, particularly with Instagram. So we definitely need to watch what they're doing and how they're moving because social media is so ingrained in our society that there has to be some sort of body that could kind of rein all this in.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Renee says, when you control 3 major social media platforms, you control the narrative.
Absolutely.
Very true, Renee. And on that thought, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, it is the people's court, y'all. A lot of these celebrities are pulling up to court, and we're going to talk about it. Stay tuned.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, y'all. Settle down. Court is now in session. And first on the docket is Jessie Smollett. He's headed back to court after that allegedly false hate crime that he conspired against himself in the beginning of 2020. And basically, a judge says, yeah, we ain't dropping that, and you won't come back to court. Let's take a look.
When actor Jessie Smollett returns to a Cook County courtroom next month, cameras will not be allowed inside. The judge also denied a motion today by Smollett's attorney to dismiss the case. Smollett is accused of falsely reporting to Chicago police that two masked men attacked him in January of 2019. Attorneys for the actor said Smollett's rights were violated because he performed community service and gave up his $10,000 bond in a deal with Cook County prosecutors to drop charges. The trial begins November 29th.
All of that unfolded was just so embarrassing for Smollett. He lost a lot behind that, and Black people got behind him. I mean, when you say that you were involved in a hate crime and that these people beat you up in the middle of the night in front of the subway in Chicago, and then they put a noose around your neck, we stood with you, bruh.
And he said they had the MAGA hats on. He tried to throw the.
It was great. I mean, he painted an awesome picture. Like, it was the perfect hate crime.
Oh, that man's creative.
Yeah, and then boom, then we saw some checks made payable to his personal trainer. And they couldn't slip off to Nigeria fast enough, and they basically spilled all the beans. So here's another thing too. So he made a deal with the prosecution there, right? Yeah. And basically said, look, you can do community service, pay your, revoke your bond, and we'll call it all good. But a special prosecutor said, yeah, not too fast. And so now they're coming back around and they're trying to essentially charge him with a felony. Is that fair?
I mean, he did it. And Dora, I see Dora in the comments saying, did he have a mental break? No, he did not have a mental break. That's why I don't feel bad for him. He did this as leverage. Like, he was trying to negotiate with Fox over his Empire contract. And this was in 2019. I can't remember if he was trying to get more money or more airtime. But basically, man, he did this for the fame. So he thought that he could make this controversy by manufacturing the perfect hate crime because, they use homophobic slurs and then they put a noose around his neck. So he's out here just checking all the hate crime boxes. This man did this. He did this. He did it, and he did it for fame. Yo, man, I can't feel bad. And I know a lot of y'all is probably a little upset with Dave Chappelle right now, but I encourage you to go Google Dave Chappelle talking about this case. It's hilarious. He talks about the two Nigerians that he hired to beat him up. It was hilarious, man. And that man's probably going to jail.
Yeah, I think they're going to show no mercy on him. I don't know if it's too soon to tell people to go listen to Dave Chappelle talk about this. But Renee, you're on point tonight, sis. A man who cries wolf and hurts his community as a result.
Facts.
This was super embarrassing. Smollett, I'm sorry. We're reporting on it, but I even had to look up. I was like, what is Jessie up to these days? Like,
what is he up to? Is he an actor still?
No, he's not doing any acting, but he is directing and he seems pretty serious about it. So
behind the camera now.
Shout out to him. I mean,
hey, man, his sister's doing it big. Every role she's had, she's bodied.
Yeah, they have a really super embarrassing for the family. All right. Well, Cardi B pleads not guilty to assault charges, and she could face 4 years in prison. So y'all remember back in 2018, or maybe you don't remember because it's been such a long time ago, but she was involved in a fight, a brawl, allegedly, and she's accused of throwing a bottle at two bartenders at a strip club. She's facing charges of reckless endangerment and assault. Cardi had the chance to plead third-degree assault. She said, yeah, no, thank you. And a hearing is scheduled for Monday in Queens. And Cardi took to Twitter and basically says she cannot wait to tell her side of the story. Mike, what are your thoughts here?
First of all, it's super crazy how anything that happened before March 2020 is just a fog. Like that Jessie Smollett story took over the whole news, and I had to relook all that up. And even with this Cardi B story, I remember when this happened vaguely, but man, like that virus and this pandemic has erased a lot. But I think she's innocent. I mean, she must be, because the deal that they offered her, it came with no jail time. Like essentially, she kind of would have got off. So the fact that she wants to fight this, and like she's been on social media saying that she can't wait to tell her story, makes me think that she's probably innocent. Plus, she just had a baby. Nobody's trying to go to jail right after they had a baby. So I chances are Cardi's probably innocent and she's telling the truth.
Leon says, shouldn't there be a statute of limitations starting March of 2020?
Yes, Leon. Yes.
For 2020, we should just be exempt from, because we had to go through this pandemic. I support Cardi B not taking a deal here, because had she taken a deal here and pled guilty, she would have opened herself, exposed herself to a civil case, which would have been easily won. And she would have just had to give up some money to the two bartenders that she allegedly got into it with. And I'm also with Harry. Cardi's always known to fight. I mean, if you know Cardi before 2018 Cardi, and she was on Love and Hip Hop, she was known to scrap. And so we're also talking about queens. I mean, so these are some girls from around the way. We know what time it is with this. So do I believe Cardi got in a fight? Yes. Do I feel that she should be, in prison for 4 years over this fight? No, not really. I mean, you keep it to the streets. So it is what it is. So Cardi, I'm sure she has some good legal advice. I don't think she's going to spend any time in jail. And so good luck to her on Monday. Someone else who is on the docket, y'all, let's talk about Nicki Minaj. Okay, I brought this up a couple weeks ago, and Nicki Minaj barely responded to the $20 million harassment lawsuit. Y'all know that she had a $20 million judgment that was requested by Jennifer Huff, who is the victim of her husband. She's the rape victim of her husband, Kenneth Petty. And so basically she took way too long to respond to the lawsuit, and she filed a sworn statement on October the 15th, stating that she hired a lawyer last month, but it was an innocent miscommunication that led to late payments and a failure to fully secure services. She says, and I quote, "My failure to respond to the complaint was the product of an innocent mistake, and I asked the court to excuse the delay so that I can defend what I believe to be an entirely frivolous case," end quote. A federal court clerk ruled that Minaj didn't fail to respond to the lawsuit, because had she failed to respond, the judgment would have been the $20 million to Huff. So they're letting Nicki have her day in court.
She deserves her day in court. I mean, we all know what her husband did, pled guilty. So I don't think that we could dispute that. I don't know about the harassment, whether it happened or it didn't happen, but I think that the courts should decide what is what. I'm not down for the cash grab or nobody trying to jump in nobody's pockets. I think you made a great point about Cardi and not opening herself up to that civil suit. I hadn't thought of that. But in this case, a similar thing. I mean, look, I'm not trying to just let people just take a run at folks' money. So take this to court, let a judge decide. If Nicki and her husband are guilty, pay up. If not, keep it moving.
I think the circumstances around this case are a little bit different. And
they're a lot different. They're a lot different.
And so because her husband, Nicki's husband, was convicted and sentenced and served time for rape, it's kind of like, why are you guys still having interactions with her years later? I mean, here we are years later, decades later. There should be no communication between the couple and Jennifer Huff. And so if Nicki Minaj failed to comply with court orders, and she was supposed to file and respond to the judgment at a particular date and time, she absolutely needs to comply with that. And I really don't want to hear like, oh, it was a miscommunication, my lawyer, my this. Like, you're a woman worth millions. How is it that you're not taking a $20 million judgment seriously? And you have the capacity to make sure that if you don't do it, somebody else is responsible for doing it. It's not like Nicki Minaj is like has to get on her computer and find a lawyer. Like, no, you have a team of individuals that are going to go out and make sure you have this. You have a lawyer on retainer. So I just don't understand like how we got here. So
she's playing games. That's literally how we got here, is because she's playing games. But I mean, this doesn't make her look better. I don't think that this is going to help her case. But I still think that the judge should decide and that she shouldn't lose on just a technicality, especially if she proved that she actually did file last week, which is what the judge said.
Which is what the clerk said, right? Because she still hasn't had her day in court. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it is what it is now. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think Nicki needs to fall back a little bit, but I also feel, right, that there are some other additional criminal charges that are on her way. I did hear through the grapevine that she has something to do with some hackers hacking HollywoodUnlocked.com and the whole situation around Karen Civil, honey. So Jason Lee from Hollywood Unlocked, you know, I'm with all the tea and the drama. There's a lot going on there. And so they basically, allegedly, she may have been the cash cow that hired a minor to hack and take down HollywoodUnlocked.com. So
she's so messy. Nicki is so messy, man. That's crazy.
Nicki's super messy. Like, you know what? This is an embarrassment. But again, you married a convicted rapist. So, I mean, I guess this is what comes with the territory.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mike, there's another story that I wanted to bring up that I thought was interesting, and I hope our audience does as well. Torrei Hart, the former wife of Kevin Hart, is defending keeping her name. She went on The Real this week, y'all, and he said, me and Kevin decided that he had no issues with me changing my last name, and my children also said to me, Mom, we don't want you to change your last name. They wanted the same last name as me, and I said, okay. What are your thoughts on an ex holding on to their name? Should she be good with this? Like, should we, like, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yo, I was about to come flame her for this. I was so ready to flame her. And then I read through the article. If Kev is good, then I'm good. I think that, like, that's on him to say. Mm-hmm. Also, they have kids. I didn't take that into account either. So if Kev is cool with her keeping the name and the kids is cool with her keeping the name, I'm cool with it. She's so extra, though. Like, it's her personality. And I understand her point that Kevin still uses her in his comedy. Like, she's still a prop that gets used for jokes that makes her feel a part of it. But at the same time, like, at some point, she has to move on. She has to go do her own thing. She says she's a comedian. She says she's an actress. I haven't seen her in anything. She needs to focus on that and stop always appearing in tabloids and in the media with some stuff related to Kevin, and actually stand on her own too and go do her thing.
Yikes. Mike Davis said, I haven't seen her in anything. Listen, if I ever get a divorce, I'm going back to my maiden name, period, point blank. There are women who have historically kept their husband's last name. Ivanka Trump did. I mean, and she held on to the Trump name. I just don't know. I mean, once you're done with the man, be done with the name, honey. Like, liberate yourself and go back to that maiden name and speak life into that. I think Torrei Hart kept the name because she's also a comedian and she wanted to have the prestige that came behind the Hart name. At this point, Kevin Hart has a new wife. He has 2 additional kids in his new marriage. And I kind of feel like it's disrespectful to the new wife. It's like your ex-wife kept her name. For sure. It's giving too much. And if I were a Nico Hart, I would be giving the side eye to your ex and baby mother. Like, yeah, girl.
You know she's side eyeing her. You know,
I would be super side eyeing her. Like, girl, get it together. Like, you're not a Hart anymore. You're a Williams or whatever you are.
How's
like,
she out here dating too, man? Like, well, how does her new partner gonna feel that she's still? I don't know, man. That's a lot.
Giving a lot. It's just giving a lot. I think if Kevin Hart were if he weren't a celebrity, I think she would have gone back. But sis, you're getting good child support. Your kids are well taken care of. We know you are his ex, but I mean, when Kevin Hart became famous, it's like you just weren't there.
Yeah, and that's a good point by Egypt too.
Yes,
these kids ain't even kids, man. They're like 14 and 16 right now. Like, these ain't babies. Like,
you're not coming up to the school like, Heaven and Kevin and my last.
yeah.
You know what?
And they know who she is at the school. She seemed like one of those.
Listen, my mom used to put young Jessie on her on the name so that people would know that she was our mom. But my mom kept her maiden name, but she would just hyphen the Jessie on there when she didn't want people to be confused so that she knew that we were her kids. At the end of the day, I don't think these schools are really tripping like that.
And you know what's funny though? My mom kept her maiden name too. Like, she's not Davis.
Right. I mean, I think it doesn't matter. I think if you really needed to, align yourself with your kids, just hyphen the name. Okay. Laura says maybe she should hyphenate and add her maiden name. Yeah, I think at this point she should just go back to her regular name. I mean, I guess it wouldn't even matter. But Tori Hart - Williams or Johnson or Green or Brown or I don't know.
Move on.
We're gonna move on too. Look, y'all, we're gonna take a quick break, but when we come back, we gotta talk about the issues with Dave Chappelle. We want to know your thoughts. What's going on? Stay tuned.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, y'all, the moment you have all been waiting for, tonight's clapback. So listen, it's a sensitive topic. Nick and I were talking about this pre-show, and there is just so much conversation about Netflix doubling down on its support to continue to offer The Closer for Dave Chappelle. And so the LGBTQ community and its subsidiaries continue to basically complain that this comedy special is promoting hate speech. And I know we talked about this a little bit before, but I actually did my research, y'all, and I watched the special. And it's much more interesting than I originally thought. Mike, take the lead. Oh, wait, before we take the lead on this, Cuddy, go ahead and run that footage for us.
Some people here saying that jokes are funny, that Dave is funny. Others saying that his special needs to be pulled. But regardless of where you stand, there was definitely passion from both sides.
This is Dave. He tells jokes for a living.
But some Netflix employees don't think Chappelle's jokes are very funny.
It's okay to laugh, but you're sparking hate conversation.
They walked out of the office in Hollywood Wednesday morning to protest his new special on their streaming service, calling it transphobic. And the dialogue got heated.
The problem is that as trans people, we have very limited rights, all right? So, can you back something?
Yeah, sure, man, do it. You're very aggressive and angry.
I am very aggressive and angry.
Oh, shut up! Who are you to talk about?
Most of this crowd says Dave Chappelle's latest stand-up called The Closer is harmful and unethical.
I hope what it does is show Netflix that just because they put it out there doesn't mean it's okay. That they've got to think about the impact it has on trans people across the world. They are a highly vulnerable group, and it's not funny.
And we have a whole piece of content on Netflix called Disclosure that is, for trans people, by trans people, that explains how comedy and content such as Dave Chappelle's is harmful.
I like his jokes! I'm in charge of the protest now!
Sprinkled in the walkout and sparking minor scuffles are Chappelle supporters who say some people just need to lighten up.
Common sense of humor! We're out here to show our support for jokes, comedy, and everything that's great about America. Free speech. And I love all these people have free speech as well. I'm glad we can have a discussion. You are trans.
Okay, so Renee, don't you leave, girl.
You better not leave, Renee. You've been on fire in the comments tonight. You better stay.
It's getting spicy. Okay, well, first of all, let me just compliment all of the people who took time out of their life to go protest in support and in opposition of Dave Chappelle. Y'all are, I love people who are passionate about where they stand. I watched the special, and as a straight woman, I felt that I didn't really understand this concept that he was promoting hate speech. Dave Chappelle is rude, he's crass, and he roasts people. Like, he goes in. I actually watched the special and I was like, dang, this is not even as funny as I thought it was going to be. It took me about like 25 minutes into the special before I could give a laugh. So I'm disappointed in the special overall because it's more of him kind of bringing full circle his issues with the LGBTQ community and less about like giving a killer special. And so I didn't really personally enjoy the closer as an entire package. Now, do I feel that he got his point across and made some valid points? I think he's taking a stance and having his own position. And his position clearly is that the LGBTQ community, that movement continues to trump, no pun intended, but continues to trump other movements. And I think he makes a valid point in that you have a lot of people in the LGBTQ community who still have that privilege. And some of that privilege is being used to exercise the acceleration of a movement. There are also people who are talking about, the disparities that the trans community faces. And I think that's not to be ignored or discounted. But Dave Chappelle says that in the special just as much as he's ranking on people. But he talks about men, women, Black people, white people, gay people, poor people. I mean, everybody has a seat at the table. So are we getting too sensitive? Is America getting too sensitive? Number one question for you, Mike, are we too sensitive? Are Americans getting too sensitive? And two, is comedy off limits?
Yes, Americans are too sensitive. Americans are well past too sensitive, especially you progressives. You all are the most sensitive people probably in the history of civilization. Y'all want to protect everything from everyone, and sometimes it gets really, really annoying and frustrating. Dave Chappelle is a comedian. He has one job. That job is to be funny. If you watch Dave and you laugh, then he did his job. If you watch Dave and you didn't laugh, then don't watch Dave anymore. Dave isn't a political figure. He's not a lawmaker. He doesn't have any power. He's just a guy that stands on a stage and tells jokes, and he really only has the power that we give him. I think that all of the things that are surrounding his special, the protests, the think pieces, all is really done so far is drive the numbers of his special through the roof. You got so many people that might not have even watched this special before who are all going to go and watch it now because it's just stayed a topic of conversation and it's dominated the headlines. It's dominated social media. I think where Dave kind of loses people, and I'm glad that you watched it, and I appreciate what you said about it. I think when Dave first started doing comedy, Dave did like super, super immature jokes with a little sprinkling of social commentary. As Dave has grown older, he's kind of morphed into this place where he's doing straight social commentary with a little sprinkling of jokes. And I think that, because he is not just going punchline, ha, 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 and he's trying to go deep and give us that introspection, I think that he's put himself in a place where people are critiquing his work as if he was a scholar, as if critiquing it, as if he was a comedian. And I think some of that Dave has brought on himself. But the idea that Netflix should pull it off air, I think is ridiculous. I will never be down with censorship. I think he should have freedom of speech. I think he should have freedom of speech the same way he had it when Black people were the butt of his jokes. And if you follow Dave Chappelle's career, for years, we were the butt of his jokes. He was making fun of crackheads. He was making fun of poor people. He created a character that was literally a Black white supremacist. Like, when he was making fun of us, it was all fine and dandy. And he talks about like leaving and turning down that money and going to Africa. Well, a big reason why he did that is because he felt like people were laughing at him instead of with him. So I think that right now, you have to hold him to the standard of a comedian and don't give him this power. I mean, in 2021, we have 33 states that have passed over or that have proposed over 100 bills that directly target the trans community. That's where your protest needs to be. That's where the fight needs to be, not over Dave Chappelle, the comedian, telling jokes that hurt your feelings.
So let me ask this, and a friend of mine, right, because I was polling to see where people stood on this. I asked a friend, do you think that this is promoting hate speech? And she says, we who are straight can't determine what hate speech is to someone who is gay. That's what white folks try to do to us, or he/she isn't racist. That's just how they see it, or it was a joke. Stop playing the race card. I think that's a very honest and very fair perspective. If me as a Black woman feel that said comment, said joke is deemed racist and or hate speech, even though you're the person who gave it, not you being Mike, but maybe the person who's giving it, just because that wasn't the intention, perhaps it's still landing. And we're saying, listen, as a community, we're going to let you know that this is hate speech because X, Y, and Z. And so do you feel that as a straight male that you have the authority to say whether or not this is hate speech?
Absolutely not. I don't. And to be 100% clear, I think it is hate speech. I wouldn't shy away from that. I mean, that's what it is. But do I hold a comedian to the same, like I don't hold a comedian to the same standard that I would if Dave Chappelle was walking down the street and TMZ pulled out the camera and he was out there attacking someone. He's on stage. He's trying to be funny. I think where I go with this is Louis C.K. Louis C.K., of course, got canceled during the Me Too movement. But before that, the first time I became aware of a Louis C.K.'s comedy, I was in college. I was kicking it with the soccer team. They're not Black. They were watching him do a comedy special. For those of you who don't know, Louis C.K. just uses the N-word. It's not even like a part of the joke sometimes. He just casually uses the N-word because he believes that as a comedian, he could use whatever word he wants to use. And to make that point of his freedom of speech, he just says the N-word. Yo, he never got canceled for using the N-word. Also, Black people never like, hey, Netflix, pull him off the, nah, we didn't protest his shows. We didn't protest anything. You know what happened? Black folks just don't watch him. I don't know a bunch of black Louis C.K. fans, even myself. I never watched any show he did. I never watched any movie he did. Even when he got taken down by the Me Too movement, I didn't even click on the articles with his name on it because I don't support him. But me not supporting him is very different than having protesters and people from Netflix walking out and people, you know what I mean? Like it's like they're proving Dave Chappelle's point right.
I literally was just about to say, and that's kind of where I think the opposition stands, is that is quite Dave Chappelle, the reaction to Dave Chappelle's closer is the only reaction he expected. He literally is proving his point, right? And so I think that makes we all are the butt of the joke.
Exactly.
In the end, we are the butt of the joke. Like
exactly.
Dave Chappelle is literally a genius in that. First of all, let me just say, I've never been a Dave Chappelle fan. I didn't watch the Chappelle show. I honestly didn't think it was funny. I know I'm not a Chappelle fan. Sorry, Egypt. Sorry, y'all. I just never really thought he was funny. Like, it's not the right kind of humor for me. My brother used to watch Chappelle. Even like when Chappelle went off air and he had that whole entire mental health breakdown, I think we should not forget the fact that Chappelle was gone for years, walked away from so much money, so many endorsements, so many contracts, and was just off the grid for like 5 or 6 years with his family. So Chappelle been through some stuff. And then to come back, right? He made such a valiant effort to come back. And he's had a $60 million trio deal with Netflix. This is the last of that trio. In the first and second special, he also was very transphobic. He talked about the LGBT community. He talked about trans people. I mean, and he didn't hold back in those specials. So I think it's interesting that standing in the moment of 2020, that a lot of people are still talking. Like, this is like everyone's outraged. I think Dave Chappelle is, not to say his point is right or not right. Dave Chappelle, his special has hurt people and will hurt people. But I think that was I think he did it to make his point. So when I watched it, I didn't think it was funny, but I watched it with the intention of research to see, like, where is he coming from? And I'm always a person who, I watch Fox News just as much as I watch MSNBC because I want to understand both sides of the conversation. Dave Chappelle has also come out to say that he is interested in sitting down with the folks from Netflix that walked out. He wants to have a conversation. I don't think that Dave Chappelle dislikes people in the LGBT community. I think that there's really no point in him having a sit down conversation because Dave Chappelle is like somebody's old ass black
literally.
So we just boxed Dave Chappelle in that box. I think the real protest
so antiquated. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the real question and really the outrage, I think, is really coming towards Netflix and the fact that they doubled down and they're keeping the special on air. I think Netflix straddles such a fine line in saying, okay, if we pull this special, what happens when another organized group comes out and says, we don't like this? And then another organized group says, we don't like this. At what point, like, are we over censoring? Now, I'm not saying that this shouldn't be pulled. To be honest, I don't care if it goes or not. Like, I didn't enjoy it. And in fact, it's been out for weeks and I just watched it just so I could talk about it on the show. But I don't know. It's there's a lot of people in support.
Yeah, I like the comment that Harry Jefferson just put up. All comedians hurt and offend certain audiences. It's almost impossible not to do jokes being centered around making fun of different specific things. For this reason, comedians should get a pass. And I think you're right. I think the only criteria for comedians is, are you funny? And I do agree with you. I think that Dave Chappelle, he sprinkled the funny in a little too far and in between in this special because he was trying to make a point. But I don't want the point that he was trying to make to get buried. So before we get out of here, I just want to get your thoughts on this, and audience, you can weigh in too. A lot of people have said a lot of things about what they think that his overall point was. This is what I believe his overall point was. Dave Chappelle is an older black man. Like Egypt said, he's like your cool ass uncle. Yeah, he's like that older black dude who has that antiquated thinking that hasn't quite caught up to the younger generations. I understand that. He's seen some things. I'm sure that he heard stories from his parents who have seen some things. I understand that. His point is, though, if you allow white people to be a part of a marginalized community, and I don't use air quotes to say that the LGBTQ community isn't marginalized, because they are, but allowing white folks to be in a marginalized community gives white folks a power in American society that I don't think Dave Chappelle thinks that we should be giving them, because at the end of the day, they're still white. So yes, they're white and they may be queer, but when they go to that job interview, they get to step into their whiteness. If they have to call the police, they get to step into their whiteness. If they get pulled over by the police, they get to step into their whiteness. When they go to the bank to try to get that home loan, they get to step into their whiteness. Black people who are also members of the LGBTQ community will never have that privilege, because they will always be Black. And in this country, we lead with race. So he's not trying to like people always attack him like he doesn't understand intersectionality. No, he's rebelling against what is accepted within intersectionality, just to say that if you are Black, you're still on the lower end of the totem pole, and we're allowing white folks to get the benefits of being a part of a marginalized community while still being white. And that's something that I do think should be discussed and shouldn't be lost in all of this.
That's exactly the point he was trying to make. And I think the caveat to that, which is what protesters, there is a side of the movement that doesn't want to acknowledge that part, but want to say, but what about Black trans people? Yes, what about Black trans people? That's not the point that Dave Chappelle was making, right? Like, he's pulling one piece out of that and saying, I want us to identify and talk about this. And I think it's important that we do talk about this. And that doesn't discount that there still are a lot of issues about Black trans people, like Andrew said, that we can't hide behind. But it's two different things that he's talking about. He's not talking about Black trans people. He's talking about the leaders of the LGBTQ movement are not Black trans people. In fact, I would argue that Black and brown trans people just are now finding their way in this line of intersectionality.
Can I also add real fast too that if you're living in America, if you're a Black trans woman, you are literally the most likely to be murdered. Like they get killed often. So like the Blackness. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. You're on the money.
You're super on the money. Super on the money. All right. This is a very interesting topic. I don't think Mike or I stand in authority to really talk about any of this. I think we brought up enough points to express what we feel the argument, the movement on both sides of the aisle is about. And we thank you for being able to come here and have these conversations and contributing your personal thoughts about it. So Renee, she says, let's not try and one up each other. Let's stand with each other. I think that's in the thought.
Hey, yo, Leon, don't, man. Go watch the Squid Show. If y'all ain't watched Squid Games, that is the show. If it's out of that, it's your Squid Games, bro. You won't be disappointed.
Oh, and before we get out of here, I just want to say Janine came through with the Tory Hart clapback and said, I just looked it up and her maiden name is Skipper. That's why she doesn't want to go back to it. If that's not the clapback tonight, Tory Skipper, Tory Hart.
Yeah. Tory Hart's a better stage name for sure.
Yeah, it is. Better stage name. All right, y'all. Well, we're going to get out of here. We love y'all. We appreciate your freedom of expression. Thank you for coming back every week. Mike Davis, when you are not here, where can they find you?
You can find me at the South Seattle Emerald. Anywhere you find the Emerald, you can find me. Also, this Saturday, I'm moderating at the Great Debate. I got Nikita Oliver and Sarah Nelson. If you are in Seattle, please, please, please register to vote. If you still don't know who you want to vote for, go to the South Seattle Emerald, look up the Great Debate. We got 4 different debates happening in one night, all back to back to back to back. So please register to vote, y'all.
Yes. All right. Keep it coming. And look, y'all, when I'm not here, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, both owned by Facebook. Actually, not Twitter, but you guys can find me at Treasure of JULES. You know what it is. And we will be back next Thursday, same time, same place. This is Clapback. Peace.